This is November 10th, 2024, or is it the 11th? Yeah, it's the 10th. So Dara Sensei and I we just got back 2 nights ago from a trip to Mexico. She was invited to lead a sesshin there because since Gerardo died, there hasn't been a teacher there to help them keep their sangha together. So I was in Sesshin until Thursday, and then we flew back Friday, got back around midnight. And I was keeping my phone off and not checking anything really, but did I miss anything? Sorry. Couldn't help myself. I actually did have my phone on because I was a second monitor and needed to just keep an eye on if anybody's family had an emergency. And so I was the emergency contact, so I was checking occasionally. And so then, of course, on whatever it was, Wednesday, then I see some messages there that with the preview on it, which I try to avoid looking at, but our family chat group, and saw some of them celebrating. And so first I was like, oh gosh, I just wanted to be in Sesshin and not have to concern myself with that. But that's really not the spirit of Zen, to totally withdraw ourselves from the world. It was kind of like it's actually really, I'm really happy that I was in Sesshin for that and was able to process it after 5 days of sitting. The Sesshin went from Thursday to Thursday, and to be able to process that with a relatively open mind. The email that went out, and then I think as Kanji just announced, it said I'll be addressing the election. It's a little bit misleading. I don't plan on addressing the election or that sort of thing per se, but kind of the, I guess just how we're feeling, trying to put it into a bit of a Zen perspective as best I can. I'll probably be asking more questions than trying to provide any answers or solutions. As Kanji mentioned, we can share a bit more later if we, after the brunch, we can go up to the library there, and but in a moment, I'll maybe open the floor for people, 3 or 4 people, if they want to chime in, and in 5 words or less, just kind of share how you're feeling, what emotions have been coming up the past few days. But yeah, as I said, we'll have a bit more of a conversation later up in the library, and I'll try my best to get the TV going for Zoom participants to join in. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet and see if I can set it up, but if there's any staff member here who is adept at it and is willing to help me out after this talk, then I would appreciate it. So that those of you who don't want to listen to me just jabbering nonstop, you can sit here quietly in the Zendo. But think about how I feel. I have to live with myself and have those thoughts all the time. We would have been out in the Sangha space, Sangha room, meeting room out back there, but board meeting is going out there, and really they're doing true bodhisattvic work, taking time away from their family, flying across the country to deal with the the difficult decisions and think and argue and decide how is the center going to stay relevant in this continuously rapidly changing world. But hopefully I can offer perspective and ground us a bit with all the excessive mental energy that I kind of picture as electrical wire. If it's not grounded properly, it can be pretty destructive if it has nowhere to go. So yeah. How about now? If anybody wants to chime in and just whatever, offer some emotions, a couple thoughts.
Well, I'm not really surprised by the results. The propaganda machine worked really well. So I can include myself in this. Some of us are just out of touch with reality. So I think sitting is very important. Keep sitting grounded.
Anybody else? Or yeah, I mean, I can relate. Yeah, not really not surprised. I didn't let myself get my hopes up because kind of seen it before, and as you said, the state of our country and how we receive information changing so rapidly, and it's easy for us to be in our own little bubbles, and yeah. But yeah, if nobody else has anything, then I'll continue on.
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
Since the election, I've just been avoiding news as much as possible. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. The more I listen to the news, the more upset I get. So I just wondering if that's a good idea to do.
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually, I think I'll address it a little bit later in this talk.
I'll just say that I'm doing the same, and I've talked to several other people who say the same. Just sort of tired of this program. Time to turn it off,
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I feel afraid, anxious. And I feel that in the short term, and I anticipate it to be in the long term. How do I go forward, at least in the next 4 years? But the short term is certainly acute. I feel an urgency or a need to do something. I don't know what that, and I don't need to know what that is. Something will emerge that feels appropriate. So I guess I feel a need for action. And waiting for that to be skillful.
Yeah.
I don't have a picture of that now at all. I don't feel, I was one of the people who went to Canada's immigration site and looked in detail, how could I get to Canada?
Yeah.
And I feel also aware that some people have felt this way about living in the United States for a while. And just that visceral, it's like both a visceral, real fear and also a vague fear.
Yeah.
I think is how I would describe it.
Thanks, Brenda.
We have a couple of hands up on Zoom. I don't know if there's any way for those people to...
Sure, maybe if...
But I don't know who the host is.
Well, how about if people who do want to chime in, just in the interest of time, let's see, I'm going to say later. Yeah, come to the talk afterwards. That's kind of the intention here. I just want to get a bit of a sense and see where people are at. I think there's a lot of emotions and different thoughts and but hopefully I can address.
So the talk will be available to Zoom people too, is what you're saying?
Yes, that's my intention. As I mentioned, I'm going to try to get the TV set up there, and if not, I have my iPad, so it'll just be a small screen for us in the library, but shouldn't be an issue for others to join in and listen and give their thoughts.
I would like to just say, though, the election, of course, didn't go the way I wanted it to, but I'd like to say that I feel hopeful and wish to stay open. And maybe it has to do with my age, having seen it so much come and go so many times. So, and I just wish to work to be with whatever happens and do my best.
Yeah, so I'll be touching upon some topics that may be sensitive for some folks, but not in any graphic way, or unless you've been hiding under a rock and not keeping an eye on the major issues of the world, whether it's climate, wars, elections, yada yada. I think, based on what we've witnessed in the past couple of years to the election, I'm confident that what I say isn't going to be too offensive or harmful for anybody. But yeah, there's going to be some difficulty, I guess. But my feeling is there's no time. This isn't the time to sugarcoat things, and anybody who knows me knows that I can be pretty stubborn and blunt, and maybe not as skillful as some would like in my speech. But I think it was long ago I kind of told myself that I'd rather die being remembered as a blunt and honest person instead of being nice all the time, just putting on a smile and everything, oh, that's great. Can that change? Will it change? Some Roshis may say it's because I'm a Leo. Besides, anyone can be nice. We all, or I wouldn't say all, but many of us grew up in an environment where we were conditioned to smile and don't say anything bad, and don't be honest. If it's you can't say anything nice, don't say it at all. But remember growing up in front of the TV. Gen X TV was my babysitter and access to the outside world. I remember those. Well, I think they're probably still out there, but those crime shows and stuff, where they show serial killers, and they were always described as being so nice. I couldn't imagine, this person doing this. They were always so polite and nice. This Zen practice is, it's based around our natural fear of death and suffering. And as we are taught, and as we maybe know firsthand, that this is caused by what we call the three poisons: the greed, anger, and delusion. It's, we have to kind of look inward and do some really difficult work to see how greed, anger, and delusion really affects our life and our interactions with people, the loved ones. There's a misconception that we Zen Buddhists, we need to be worried about withdrawing from the world and just getting blissed out and all zenned out and just walking around with a big smile and levitating everywhere we go. And as anybody who's really been at this a while knows that that's hardly the case. And I want to throw in here something that probably many of us have heard before, and if you haven't, it was really, it's something I find myself going back to often when I'm in a confused emotional state and, trying to figure things out. But it's the Taoist parable about the Chinese horse farmer. It was, I guess, popularized by Alan Watts, and it goes like this. And, even if you've heard it, hear it again and let it sink in. Once upon a time, there was a farmer whose horse ran away. That evening, all of his neighbors came around to commiserate. They said, "Oh, we're so sorry to hear your horse has run away. This is so unfortunate." And the farmer said, "Maybe." The next day, the horse came back, bringing 7 wild horses with it. And in the evening, everybody came and said, "Oh my gosh, you're so lucky, so fortunate. What a great turn of events. You have 8 horses now." And the farmer again said, "Maybe." The following day, his son tried to tame one of the horses, and while riding it, was thrown and broke his leg. The neighbors then said, "Oh dear, that's too bad. Your son, he can't help out on the farm. What are you going to do?" So unfortunate. And the farmer again, "Maybe." Next day, the conscription officers came around to draft people into the army because they were going to war, and they rejected his son because he had a broken leg. Again, all the neighbors came around, "Oh, you're so fortunate. Your son is not going to go off to war and not going to die." Of course, maybe. And as Alan Watts found what he said after this quote, the whole process of nature is an integrated process of immense complexity, and it's really impossible to tell whether anything that happens is good or bad, because you never know what the consequences will be of the misfortune, or what the consequences will be of what we consider good fortune. Of course, there's this duality in Zen: good, bad. We want to know what's good or bad. What do I want? How do I want things to be? With the recent hurricane season and destruction caused by that, kind of this image in this past Sesshin came up while I was processing this, and kind of zooming out from above and seeing that satellite view of a hurricane as it's coming towards land. And I think it kind of, we can kind of see it as the state of the world, political divisions that we see today. If you look at that vision of the hurricane from above, there's the clouds swirling around, and then there's that eye of the storm. And as probably many of you know, in that eye, it's perfectly still. People who have experienced it say it's pretty eerie because there's the storm sweeping through. You're getting blasted. The trees are all blowing from, one direction, from the north, say. I don't know which direction they go. Maybe it's different in different places. I don't know. And then if you're in the path of the eye, there comes this clear, calm silence. Maybe not silence, but stillness, rather. And then the other part of the storm comes and blows the wind in the other direction. So a lot of houses are damaged by, maybe the first wave didn't get you because it was going from one direction, but then the other one. And I kind of see it as, we might say, "Oh, I prefer the wind coming from the north instead of the south." But really, we're all in this storm together, going, whether it's red, blue, right, left, it's the same storm. And I guess ideally, if we had our preferences, we could stay in that calm center. It's easy to get swept out again if you don't follow it and move along. It requires constant attention, as this practice does. Anybody who is sitting here probably knows. But if we can remain in that center of the storm and not get swept up in all of everything that's out of our control, really all we can control is our focus and what we decide to pay attention to. If we can stay in that center, then as people make their way to the center as well, and maybe find their way to this path. And of course, it's not the only path for wisdom, this sort of wisdom and understanding. But whatever it is, these people are coming to the center, and they have to pass through the most powerful and destructive part of the storm, the eye wall. That's that wall right next to the calm and quiet, or calm and, again, still area. So if we can stay centered and try to help those people through that final chaos and energy, then maybe that's what we can do with this practice. Of course, we fear death and suffering and pain and all that, and that clearly has an evolutionary advantage, right? So people who feared, say whatever, a poisonous snake, when they see a snake, oh, I'm getting away from that. But then there are others who don't have that fear. One example that came up recently was, Kanji, could I get more water, please? I'm parched. Thank you. So one thing that popped up with that was this past sesshin is that so we're getting ready for it, and we're concerned about what are any insects and snakes and stuff, poisonous things that we need to be concerned of. One of the Sangha members, there's scorpions. The little darker ones are fine. They're not, it's more just like a wasp bite or something. But look out for the little kind of translucent blonde ones, as they call them. Watch out for the blonde ones. And so, okay, but he's like, you won't have any problem. They don't come around. So right before the sitting began, first night, Dara comes in, taps me on the shoulder, and whispers, "There's a scorpion on the wall in my room." And she does not like insects whatsoever. And I'm fascinated by them. I don't know why. Probably evolutionarily, that's not a good thing, but don't know. Maybe that's my role, not to be scared of them, so I can go and scoop them up, put them outside, and be on our way. She then had another scorpion in her room on day 3, numerous spiders, a millipede. I didn't have anything. I was right next to her. We had the same little little cabin thing, and our doors were right next to her. And this big hairy spider right outside her door, just hanging out and kind of just making fun of her. That I'd say they just sense your deep compassion, and they're coming for the Dharma. They really want to get on the path. I guess, again, the idea of zooming out and trying to put things in perspective here. I have this. Once I saw this graph a few years ago, it just couldn't get out of my head. So this is the size of the world population over the last 12 years. So for a visual reference, anybody who's at home or whatever, if you want to look, doesn't really matter. But so I'm kind of made up this to give us a sense of scale, how human evolution has grown over the years. So if we have this tan here is about 3 feet or about 1 meter wide, and the ceiling, I'm going to say, is 9 feet tall. So x-axis is the tan on the floor at the base of the tan. Y-axis is going up. I'll do it on this side because that might be more visually correct for people looking over this way. So we start 4 million years ago, or rather, we'll say 12,000 years ago. 4 million people are estimated to have lived on this earth for 4.5. So starting at this end, bottom corner, 10,000 years ago. Then as we move across, that doesn't change very much. Not until we get about, 2/3 of the way across this. Then it starts to pick up. We've got the Egyptian Empire, 3000 BC to whatever, roughly 30 BC, I guess. So there, at this 15-inch mark, the population's about half an inch off the floor. And at that time, early North Americans were coming down from Siberia. There were Mayans down in Mexico, Yucatan Peninsula. I got a great history on this trip, this Mexico trip. I was never really a history buff, but that's because when you have somebody who's interested in it and can tell it well, then it becomes more alive. Time of Shakyamuni Buddha, 500 BC, about 150 million people now. So we're about 2.5 inches off the floor and just under 8 inches from this final end of current time. Jesus came along a few hundred years later, 190 million, so we're just not much more, about just under 3 inches off the floor. Not much further than before, about 6 inches from the end. Bodhidharma, our guy, 400 AD, 3 inches off the floor, just under 5 inches from the end. Dogen, 1200. This is around the time of leading up to some Middle Ages, maybe whatever they're called, Dark Ages, or down, and it's also the time of the Ethiopian Empire around 1200, and early North Americans are really chugging along and living the dream. So at this time of Dogen, 1200, we're getting just 3.5 inches from the very end here, from the edge, and we're at still under 5 inches off the floor. Early North Americans, Mayans, we know, plague, Europeans come. A lot of bad stuff went down. 5.5 inches off the floor, 3 inches from the end. We're still way over here. And then 1619, first slaves from Africa are brought to the U.S. And we're now about half a billion people. So it's quite a spike there, going from that number. And again, now we're just 2 inches from the end here, and 8 inches high. Not until the American Revolution, or actually let's throw in Hakuin I put in there, 1700, 600 million, 9 inches up. 1 3/4 from the end. And then American Revolution, 1776, 800 million. We're at the top of the ton, or just below it, let's say, under this ledge here, and about 1.5 inches, 1.6 inches I put on here, because the next one, on the top of the ton, we are in 1865. 13th Amendment, slavery is abolished. 1 billion people, we hit the first 1 billion, and that's at the top of the ton, about 1.5 inches, so 2 finger widths away from the end. And then things get interesting. So, 1912, Roshi Kapleau is born, 1.75 billion. Now we're just over 2 feet off the floor. And we're basically we're splitting hairs as we get in this final inch, half an inch. So I'll just ignore that for time's sake. Roshi Kapleau, 25 inches off the floor. 1928 is when 2 billion strikes, or hit that mark, 28 inches off the floor. So we raised another 3 inches. And 1941 comes along, and that's when my dad is born. Errol is born. 2.3 billion, 34 inches. So we're getting about 3 feet. So basically, as you can see now, we're climbing up pretty far. I'm just going to say, okay, I was born in 1975. That's where 4 billion were. So now we're at 53 inches right here. So in the time of when my dad and Errol, as two examples, were born, we went from 34 inches to 53 inches in just, less than a quarter of an inch of time. And Zen Center was founded in 66, so that was down 4 inches, or 4 feet rather. And then we celebrated our 30th anniversary in 1986, 5 billion. We're up at 70 feet, almost 6 feet off the floor. Chapin Mill Retreat Center, 1999, another billion, 6 billion. We're at 7 feet off the floor. 2011 is when we hit 7 billion. And now we're basically at the ceiling at 8.2 billion or so, I think. So in this short amount of time, when we think of the great masters, they had it pretty easy. They didn't have to worry about anything. Jeez, just some bandits and that sort of thing. The amount of change they saw was just snail's pace. And just within my lifetime, it's just, it went from 53 inches up to the ceiling, just whoosh. So all that change that we're dealing with, we all feel it. It's not until we put it into perspective, like, okay, I'm not crazy. This is, our bodies and brains didn't evolve to adapt this quickly. We have so many stressors. So let me get away from that history lesson, and I will now go to. So yeah, how can we expect to make a significant difference, meaningful difference, by getting critical and angry with those around us? They are feeling the same anger and fear. Everybody's fearful. We withdraw when we're fearful. Try to keep out the world. Everything's happening so fast. I just want things to be the way they are. My mom would, she'll often say, I just want things to go back to the good old days. It was so nice back growing up in the 50s. And I'm like, yeah, you were a child. You had no concerns. if you look beneath the surface, as we know now, it wasn't so pretty. So we need to learn how to, have respectful conversations, demonstrate to others, to our family members, especially as we come up to this time of the holidays. Try to demonstrate to them what it's like to listen as a compassionate person with our whole being. Once we create that division of me and you, that just stops it. Now it's just, okay, you're on that side, I'm on this side, done. You can quote to them as many great sutra verses or teachings from the masters, something that really had a real impact on you, that just, you can tell them, just don't see the world in such a dualistic way, then everything will be just fine. That's not going to help. I feel fortunate. I'm, not formally diagnosed, but pretty clear that, I'm dyslexic, grew up dyslexic at a time where, small town, Western New York, schools didn't really, at least my school didn't have the resources or knowledge of what there was to diagnose it. So I didn't read very much at all. So I feel fortunate that I didn't get drawn into the books of Buddhism or Zen and get these ideas in my head before kind of coming to the path there. I think I'll touch upon kind of, I've done it before in my Coming to the Path talk, but I'll mention it again a little bit later. So what we know, the historic teachings, and what we know of the historic teachings and the beliefs of many world great religions, that sort of thing, that's all been mediated through words, writing, whether it's sutras, Bible, Quran, and as we know from, if we were just to play that game, gossip or telephone, whatever you want to call it, that little icebreaker game where we start around the Zendo and just whisper in each other's ear some simple sentence, by the time it comes back, it's going to be so distorted, and that's just within 5 minutes. Think about millennia. So we have, what I appreciate about this tradition is it's not about the words. I don't have to read to become a good Buddhist or a Zen student. We have this more of a scientific, empirical, evidence, repeatable results method. As long as we have a solid, genuine teacher to help guide us along, then I think we're in good shape. The biggest challenge for many of us is to trust, gain that trust in a teacher or someone that can tell you like it is, the Dharma. This is how it is. Not try to say, oh, yes, oh, you're such a good... But first, I know for myself, the hardest thing about, before I really felt like I could trust Roshi in the Doksan room or whatever, I realized I didn't trust myself. It was always looking out. It was looking outward, pointing, it's their fault. Where I first came across Buddhism and Zen was at RIT. I was finishing up there in late 90s, and I just wanted to get the hell out of Rochester, get out of RIT. I had one semester left, and I needed a philosophy elective to fulfill my degree, and I had no interest in philosophy. It was just more reading and papers, and just get me out of here. But I wanted to get out of there, so okay, I'm going to suck it up. The only class that fit my schedule for my other required classes was at 8 a.m. and was a class. It was called, I think, like the Great Thinker Series, Philosophy of the Buddha or the Buddhism. I said, Jesus, go listen about this little bald fat guy and religion. No, thank you. I was fine, getting high, drinking, and that was my religion. That and mountain biking, and that's me. That's who I am. That's who I'll always be. And the one thing that really, he was the professor. He died quite a while ago. Jamie Campbell, and actually, current Sangha member succeeded him in the chair of the history or the philosophy department at RIT. So it's interesting getting that input. But anyways, so the one thing I remember that really stood out to me, and that was he was talking about this dualistic way of seeing the world, and the way he said is, I don't know, I've never heard this example before. I don't know if it was his own, or maybe it's common in other teachings. Maybe it's in the sutra. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, because in that moment. Well, anyways, so this class was at 8 a.m. in the morning. I hadn't taken a class before 10 a.m. the whole time I was at RIT. So this final one, 8 a.m. Oh, geez. So get there, first day, just this professor just like he just reached in and grabbed me. It's like, come here. And before then, like the professors, they were others. They were kind of on a screen in a way. This is my world. I'm just viewing your, whatever. I'm here to get my degree, get out of here, and you just gotta do your job. And this guy was the first one that was the most human, most engaging, and honest. Really, I mean. He shared so much about himself that I won't go into. But the one teaching that really stuck with me, and I think of it as, he said, anytime we create an other, we point out the faults of others. This is what you did. This is why I don't like you. This is your problem. And he said, what we got to do is stop, and if we are holding our hand out, physically pointing at somebody. Stop, turn your hand over, and you've got 3 fingers pointing back at you. And he's like, the teaching of Zen Buddhism is to look inwards, look back. What barriers am I creating? Next, I want to throw in, Kanji, how much time do we have? Is it
It's 10:15, so we got
15 minutes? Or?
15 minutes.
Okay. So, this is a newspaper article, July 13th, 1999, Democrat and Chronicle here in Rochester. Title of it is, World War II Widow Learns the Truth. The byline, after 55 years, area woman hears how pilot husband died over Normandy, and by Dolores Orman. So this date, July 13th, 99, is a really significant point in my life, in that, so it was just that previous November, I think, or whatever, previous fall quarter at the time for RIT. It was that one that I had that philosophy class, the Buddhism class. And kind of that seed was planted. So I finished up in the spring, and I'll just say life was not very peachy for me. It wouldn't be another 10 years until I was diagnosed with clinical depression. At that time, again, where I grew up, you don't talk about mental health. Nobody knows what it is. It's just, okay, you're whatever, you're a sad sack, you suck it up, blah, 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 all that stuff we've heard. So yeah, I really, at that time, did not expect to be around for Y2K. Because at that time, Y2K, oh my God, the world's going to end. We're going to, the computers, And then in August of 99, so just after this article came out, was when I came here for my first workshop. First full workshop for that class. We came here and did like a little mini field trip. And did a little, quick orientation. And it was led by Lawson Sachter Roshi, now down in, married to Bowden Roshi's wife, Sonia, down in Asheville. And I just at the time I didn't, I was like, all right, the Zen Center, we got the instructions of where to go. I'm like, all right, where is it? I look at it, and it's 2 blocks away from where my apartment is. I had no idea it existed. So if you walk out the link and just go 2 blocks over on Sibley Place, you'll run into the house I had an apartment with a friend. So I walk over. Oh my gosh! As soon as I walked into the link, it was just whoa! I never felt such a powerful feeling of actually feeling that I was in the right place. So back to the story. So Marion Horick finally has answers to a 55-year-old personal tragedy. Until a few weeks ago, she never knew how her husband, U.S. Air Force First Lieutenant Herbert W. Stanford of Brockport, had died. Now, thanks to a young Frenchman's research, she has seen the site where the American fighter pilot plane crashed in Normandy during World War II, and she has attended a memorial service there in his honor. Stanford died on July 18th, 1944, exactly 6 weeks after the D-Day invasion of Europe. He was 23. Horick was 22. They were childhood sweethearts, been married for 13 months. So he was my age at the time, or my age that I was when this article was out in 99, so early 20s. Some other dates, so this, again, Errol, sorry to use you as an example, but, I can't help and give away your age here, but, so, Errol would have been about 3 years old in the UK, and my understanding, I hope it's accurate enough, Errol, please let me know later if it's not. So my understanding is that she was born in the underground tunnels of London during a Nazi air raid. And Philip Kaplow, 32-year-old reporter in the U.S., court reporter, if I didn't say And anybody who knows Lyman, the former caretaker of Chapin Mill for Ralph Chapin, he still comes to lunches pretty much every week when there's not a sesshin. And so he was 9 years old, born in 1935. He lived in Latvia on a farm with his mom and dad, and it was right in the front lines between the battle of the Germans and the Russians. He had stories of, how his dad, even though the Nazis would humiliate all the boys and men by bringing them behind the barn and making them drop their drawers to make sure they weren't Jewish, he said his dad preferred the Nazis because the Russians would come and just take all their food and crops and all their stores and just leave them without anything. So now, in 99, it's 77, Horik, with a few relatives and in attendance, attended a Catholic Mass and a plaque dedication in Stanford's honor on June 27th in the village of Robidange, France, where his plane went down. The village population is only 167, but more than 500 came around. There's a plaque there now. I'll skip over it for an inch of time. And she said, "It's nice to know my husband lives on in that area," because they have a war memorial there. The day before the ceremony, Horik walked to a cornfield where the plane went down and crashed. Some people came out, and there was a woman who grew up and remembers seeing it. And her family had a farm where the plane went down. So she told Marion Horik, that the plane had been hit and was being chased by 4 German planes. She believed the pilot could have parachuted to safety, but stayed with the plane to keep it from crashing into the farmhouse. When he did jump, it was too late, and he was found dead hung up in a tree. The Germans took all of his identification and left his body at the entrance to the cemetery. Villagers buried him. They would sneak out at night to put flowers on the grave. And skipping ahead. So originally she was told that he was missing in action. Then that he was presumed dead. In 1946, she authorized the reburial of his body in France. But the U.S. government never told her how he died. Maybe they didn't know, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. So the young widow went on with her life, and 4 years after her husband's death, she married Frank Horik. They have 4 children and 6 grandchildren, and I am one of those grandchildren. I remember, growing up and being at Grandma's house and seeing this photo of this guy in a pilot's outfit, and who is this guy? And I think my mom explained it to me. I didn't know, but so this young history buff in France, Stéphane David, heard about the plane crash as a child. In 1995, he started trying to identify the pilot. And his quote is, "Of course, I have not known this painful period, but as a young French boy, the memory is very important to me." David, then 23, same age that I was then, wrote to Horik on December 12th, "Your husband was my age when he died. I don't forget it." So in recent years, I think we hear, from the political spectrum, the extremes, we hear people on both sides, "Oh my gosh, if my candidate doesn't win, then we're going to turn into Nazi Germany. This is going to be horrible, la 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 la." But I'm going to pretty confidently say it. No, it's not going to turn into Nazi Germany, because Nazi Germany was Nazi Germany. This is the U.S. right now, 2024. And as we go back and forth and say, was this, Nazi Germany's history and their rise to power and all that, that was just horrible. One of the most horrible things of human existence. And yeah, most definitely. But if we look at it in a different perspective, without Hitler, the I, as I am here now, on this path, might not be here. Errol, as we know her, might not be here. And Philip Kapleau wouldn't have gone to the Nuremberg trials as a court reporter and the Kyoto trials. And wandered into a Japanese temple where he was on his path to this practice. So yeah, we all might not be here right now, but of course we can't say this might not happen, because that's the Dharma. Things are as they are right now, right here, and it's how we choose to focus our attention and what matters to us, trusting our gut. We have to go in and not be afraid to do that dirty work and have a little bit of an ego bruising here and there, and get rid of figure out why do I have these ideas that I do. I've had in my whole life about these people or those people, the others. Even within our Zen Sangha, here or afar, just was reminded of a conversation I had with one of the Mexican Sangha after Sesshin, and we're just talking about whatever, where we traveled and that sort of thing, and I said, okay, we went to China in 2010 and and they said, oh, I heard the Chinese people are really dirty. Is that true? Part of me thinks that if that comment would have come up here, there would have been, I don't know, a bit of an argument. And there's nothing like traveling. Oh my gosh, we used to travel quite a bit, as much as we could before the pandemic, and then we didn't get a chance to. Dara's dad, health, and all that. So, oh my gosh, it just really was lovely. Just everybody in Mexico was just lovely. Everybody that we met came across. It's just great experience. So yeah, we have to be willing to get out of our comfort zone. At first, going down there, I have limited Spanish. And of course, when I'm trying to talk with somebody in public, asking them for directions or this or that, kind of self-conscious. Oh, am I going to say it right? Am I going to? And then, finally, it's like, all right, just got to break down, try it, stumble, trip ourselves up, using Google Translate on our phone whenever we can, and just the crazy things that it comes up with. And all of a sudden, we have this great conversation. We're just laughing because it's just absurd what Google is saying, and we mime things, and and then we say, gracias, adios, hasta luego, and then go on to the next thing. So yeah, we hear a lot. I've been guilty of it myself, thinking it over the past several years, especially when my brain is not working the way I wish. It's like, oh my gosh, these are just not normal times. This is not normal. Why am I here right now? Oh my God, climate, hatred, wars, violence. It's perfectly normal. Everything that led up to this point happened. We can't go back and change it, at least as far as I know. Maybe in whatever quantum theory, yada yada. Can't go back and change it. So what have we got? We can try to look to the future. And that's there's a evolutionary survival mechanism. We as humans, as we grew, we became more creative. We can think of this and that, me and them, and how, what do I want? And we can create great art. We can create food and whatever, this shelter. And it can be as difficult as it can be to believe, as is often said in, I think, as far as I know, most Buddhist traditions, at least Zen, I've heard it many times, that there are no accidents. Just circumstances that we might not prefer at any given time, prefer in, air quotes, I guess. But Zen practice can help us, reduce and maybe even ideally cease that suffering. But it's not going to get rid of the causes of it. It's not going to get rid of the circumstances that led up to this point. And it's constantly, when we're constantly dwelling in the past or fearing the future, we're going to miss this right here. The people around us right now. There's no war. As far as we know right now, there's no war. Oh yeah, we've seen photos, we've seen news. There's stuff going on right here, right now. I'm sitting around a bunch of lovely people working on themselves and doing their best to be present. Okay, this final little bit, and then we're done. It's 10:30. Just one other little story that it's just one of those things that you can't make up. So when we were down in Mexico, I was just fascinated with all the different birds and insects, and just taking photos of things. And I found this nice, beautiful butterfly that was hanging upside down under a leaf, and it was green. It looked like a green monarch, basically. I thought, oh my gosh. And it was a little bit larger than a monarch. I got a photo of it. And after Sesshin, this young guy who was in Sesshin was telling me a story. He's like, jeez. I didn't mention anything about butterfly photo. Telling a story. It's like one day, day 2 or 3, whatever, or day 1 or 2, whatever. I was walking around. And I see this butterfly on a branch, and I just came up to it and kind of bowed to it because it's so beautiful, and then it opened its wings for me. His wings opened its wings, so I opened my hands like yes, and then it closed its wings, and I closed my hands and bowed to it, and then he then said, later that day he saw in the room he was staying in there was a drawing or painting on the wall of his room, and it was that butterfly, and he's like yeah, the artist could have been a little bit, more, whatever, detailed here and there. Not quite accurate. So he's judging there. He's like, all right, whatever. He's like, I know this is day 2 or whatever. I'm tired and whatever. My thoughts aren't this or that. And then he said, later in the week, he happened to look at it again, and he sees the signature of the artist, and it was a signature of his aunt. And he said, she sticks out in his mind because as a young boy, he saw her die right in front of him. And that was the first time he learned of death. So it's just... And, we were talking like, okay, what does it mean? Oh, yeah, there's so many, who knows, there's so many things we don't. And, I said, how do you, in Spanish, how do you say, it is what it is? And he said, the literal way is, es que lo es. But he said, the way we would really say it is, es que lo hay. This is what we have. This is what there is. And I guess... I'll just end with a quote from the great philosopher and baseball player Yogi Berra, known for saying, "It's tough to make predictions, especially about the future." So with that, I guess SK Loai and 4 vows, Kanji.